Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Om Sahana-vavatu Sahana-bhanaktu Saha-veeryam-bhavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai.
Samavishwavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. So
Om Namah Shivaya.
we were discussing Shankara's views. We had completed the 11th Anuvaka and we were discussing Shankara's views. And we had discussed his views on whether karma by itself can give moksha, kevala karma, and he had said no. And also we had discussed the view of those people who say that karma, predominantly karma, mixed with jnanam. So, yeah, jnana karma samuchaya, where karma is predominant, they can give moksha, it had been said. And that also Shankara is dismissed. Now we are looking at his view of the third Purvapakshi. So if you remember, there were 5 Purvapakshis. So 2 we have finished. We are looking at the third Purvapakshi view. The third view is that where karma and jnanam are mixed, but in equal measures. So sama pradhana samuchaya it is called. Sama meaning in equal measures. You have to supply jnana karma sama pradhana samuchaya. Jnanam and karma have the same strength. Shankara says he doesn't get into something elaborate, any elaborate argument on this. He says by the same argument which was used in the last Purvapakshi, which is what anything that is produced has to be going away. So anything which is produced cannot be eternal, cannot be moksha. And because of that argument, Shankara says, this view of samapradhana samuchaya, that jnanam plus karma produce moksha. That is the critical view. They produce moksha because karma is involved, right? So they produce moksha. And therefore he says this also cannot be a valid argument because whatever is produced cannot be eternal and moksha is eternal. Now, another Purvapakshi comes who is supporting this objectionist and he says, okay, I agree that karma and jnanam in equal measures, that is to say, sama pradhana samuchaya, cannot produce moksha, produce in inverted commas. And he says, I agree, because moksha cannot be produced, it is eternal. However, he says, the practice of this combination, this samuchaya, is necessary for removing the obstacles to moksha. For removing obstacles to moksha, some tools are necessary to remove the obstacles, and jnanam and karma are the tools for removing these obstacles to moksha. Once they are removed, you can claim the ever-present moksha as your real nature. So seems to be a very valid argument. Shankara responds, that too is not acceptable. Why? He simply says that much. But what is the reason? The reason is in Shankara's single word, na, not acceptable. That answer is implied. The reason is implied. If moksha is ever present and jnanam plus karma are to be used for removing the obstacles, then can you guess what is the reason? We are saying jnanam and karma are to be used for removing obstacles to moksha. Okay. And that view, Shankara says, is false. It is not acceptable at all. Can you say why?
Jnanam is not an obstacle.
No. Jnanam and karma are the tools used for removing the obstacle.
Okay.
Acharya ji, can I try?
Please go ahead, Kush.
So obstacles are in Vyavaharika, but in Paramarthika there is no duality.
No, that's not the correct answer. It's actually pretty obvious answer.
Is it because they're treating moksha like a sadhyam, and to this sadhyam there are obstacles?
No. Let's put it this way. What is the obstacle for moksha?
Avidya, Ajnanam.
Ajnanam is the obstacle. Now to remove ajnanam, if the pratibandha is the pratibandha, the moksha is ajnanam, what removes ajnanam?
Very simply Jnanam, but I'm not
Jnanam
sure.
removes ajnanam,
Yes.
and therefore
Yes.
he says, since jnanam is the tool which removes ajnanam, where is the question of saying that karma is required?
Ah, okay.
You see, that's what his argument
Okay,
is. That
okay.
you are saying that
Okay.
jnanam and karma are required to remove obstacles. But you look at the obstacle. What is the obstacle? The obstacle is ajnanam. To remove ajnanam, there is only one tool, and that is jnanam. So how can you say that jnanam or karma are required to remove the obstacles? Okay, this is one reply to this objection. Now there is a second reply also. Okay, another sort of a reply. What is the Purva Pakshi saying? That karma and jnana samuchaya, the combination of karma and jnanam, is to be used as a tool for removing the obstacles. Now here Shankara says, it's a very beautiful answer. Shankara says that remember when we are saying karma over here, what karma are we implying? Whenever karma is mentioned in the scriptures, what karma are we implying? Anybody? I think we have discussed this sufficient number of times. Karma means only one thing.
Vedic karma?
Vaidika karma. Okay, Vaidika karma, yes, Nitya karma. And Shankara says, in case of Vaidika karma, Nitya karma, for example, Shastra specifically talks about the phalam of each karma. And if you look at the Shastram, he says nowhere the Shastram say that the removal of the obstacle to moksha. So moksha pratibandha nivrittihi is never prescribed, is never said to be a karma phalam. In the scriptures, all sort of phalams are given for nitya karma. Mostly, removal of, mostly it is about creation of punyam, going to swarga. All these are various phalams. But nowhere does Shastra talk about the fact that nitya karma can be used to remove the obstacles to moksha. So moksha pratibandha nivrittihi is never talked about as a karma phalam. And he says, as all karmas have phalams other than moksha pratibandha nivrittihi, and what are the phalams? We discussed earlier. Utpatti, production, vikaraha, modification, samskaraha, purification, aptihi, reaching a destination. These are the only 4 types of phalams, and moksha is different from any of these phalams. Why? Because moksha is the very nature of Brahman. And therefore, your argument that karma jnana samuchaya can be used for remove obstacles is not correct. It's a different argument, not talking about the use of jnanam as an obstacle for removing ajnanam. But he says, out of these 4 phalams, this nivrittihi is not one of the phalams at all. And because why? Moksha is a very nature. Okay. Now, this Purva Pakshi is an educated Purva Pakshi. Okay. So he does not give up. So he says, have you forgotten that Veda talks about moksha, which is to be reached by traveling? Where does Veda say all these things? Any idea? We have done Upanishads. 2 Upanishads we have done. One is
Mundaka Upanishad?
Mundaka Upanishad. Exactly. But what does it say? Surya Dwarena.
Surya Dware, Surya Rashmi.
Traveling through the Rashmis of Surya. So this is Mundaka 1 to 11. You can refer to it when you get back. 1 to 11 Mundaka talks about going through a particular travel. It talks about travel. And Katho Upanishad, Tayor Dhvamayan 2, 3, 16 talks about traveling through the nadis. And traveling through the nadis, he reaches Amritatvam. Both Upanishads he quotes. This Purvapakshi he quotes. He says that you are saying all these things, but you are a Vedic believer. How can you ignore these two Shruti Vakyams which talk about traveling? And therefore, because of that Shruti Vakyam, it is clear that moksha is falling under aptihi, the fourth palam, which can be attained through traveling. Very, very, reasonable argument. Shankara replies, no. What you say is not acceptable for two reasons. One is because what exactly is moksha? Moksha is knowing that I am Brahman. Where is Brahman found? Brahman is sarvagataha, all-pervading. To reach an all-pervading one, there is no need to travel because he is there anyway. So the first one is sarvagatatvat. Because of being all-pervading, we cannot accept your reply that moksha is reached by traveling. Aptihi is not a valid argument. One more very important point he makes. He says that the technical term he uses, gantrabhyascha ananyatvat. Gantrabhyascha ananyatvat. Gantra is the person who does gatihi. Gati means travel. The traveler is called gantra. And bhyascha, it means from. So from the traveler, ananyatvat. Anya means what? Others, different. Ananya means not different. Therefore, he says, Gantrabhyascha ananyatvat. Brahman is not different from the Gantra. Who is the Gantra? The traveler. Who is the traveler? The Jivan. So, if Brahman is not different from the traveler, where is the need to travel? So, two very specific reasons. Because Brahman is all-pervading, there is no need for any travel. Because Brahman is not different from the traveler, there is no need for traveling, and therefore moksha can never be reached by travel. What is he saying? Any destination, if you think about it, any destination has to fulfill two conditions. What are they?
Start of a journey and the end of a journey, of a point A to point B.
Okay, anybody else?
Moving from.
Based on the argument we have just made, for any place or person to be classified as a destination, there should be two conditions. What are they?
Is it that the destination must be limited in nature and it also must be separate from that person?
It should be away from you, right? One. And it should be different from you. Both these are what Shankara is talking about. That Brahman is not away from you because you are the traveler. Brahman is not different from you because you are the traveler. And Brahman is all-pervading, therefore it is not away from you. So these two conditions are necessary for anything to be classified as a destination. It should be different from you, it should be away from you. And Shankara says both these are not fulfilled, and therefore Brahman cannot be a destination. So the question is, he has said that you and Brahman are not different. That is a statement made by Shankaracharya. And we cannot accept any statement, right? Unless it is backed up by Shruti. So Shankara quotes. How do we know that Jivatma and Brahman are not different? He said that is very well known, he says. And he talks about two Upanishadic statements. One is, we have already done. Kshetrajñam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Kshetrajñam chapi mam vidhi Sarva Kshetreshu He Bharata. Where did it come?
Chapter 13.
Chapter
Bhagavad
30.
Gita.
What does it mean? Kshetrajnam.
I'm the knower of the Kshetra. And
Kshetrajnam cha api mam vidhi. Know me as the Kshetrajna, the knower of the Kshetram. Sarva Kshetreshu He Bharata. In all beings, I am the knower. Okay, so I am Brahman in all beings. So that he quotes. Then he quotes one more mantra, which we have not yet done because it will come later on in this Taittiriya Upanishad. So that mantra says, Tat Srishtva Tad Evanu Pravishat. It's a very, very famous mantra called Anupravishya statements, Anupravishya mantra. Briefly, what the mantra says is that after Brahman created the world, he created the bodies, and Tat Srishtva, having created the bodies, Tadeva Anupravishata. He himself entered the bodies as what? As Jivatma. Very clearly proving that Jivatma and Brahman are the same. So these two he quotes. Then Purvapakshi is, a very well-read Purvapakshi. So he raises one more objection. He says that Shastra talks about reaching Brahmaloka through Upasana. Right? So here, let us understand one thing. We say that pure karma, we have said before, pure karma can generate punyam which can take you up to all the swargas excepting Brahmaloka. But to enter Brahmaloka, you need what? Punyam generated by karma
Upasana.
plus upasana. To enter Brahmaloka, you need to have punyam generated by karma plus upasana. But remember that everybody who goes to Brahmaloka doesn't necessarily get Krama Mukti. So that point, this particular objection here from the Purvapakshi is to clarify that point, that everybody who enters Brahmaloka using karma plus upasana doesn't necessarily get Krama Mukti. It doesn't necessarily get moksha. Why? Because karma and upasana can be done in two ways. Can be done sakama upasana as well as nishkama upasana. So the sakama upasana person, the sakama upasaka, he will go to Brahmaloka. He will enjoy all the pleasures of Brahmaloka, which are far more than the pleasures of the other swargas. And then when his punyam is over, he will come back. But the nishkama upasaka, he will go to Brahmaloka. He will go to Lord Brahmaji's classes. He will get Krama Mukti. Okay. So this Purvapakshi, he says that Shruti talks about reaching Brahmaloka through upasana and karma. And therefore, Shruti Vakyams are talking about what? Travel. Reaching Brahmaloka. Right? And also, the same Vakyams talk about, for the Sakama Upasaka, he says that the Sakama Upasaka gets the same powers as Ishvara, as Lord Brahmaji. Okay, that's one more statement somewhere else, that a Sakama Upasaka can enter Brahmaloka, enjoy pleasures, and also get almost the same powers as Lord Brahmaji. So he says, if you are saying that this difference is not acceptable, then you are negating all these Shruti Vakyams. And he elaborates. If you say, he says very specifically, if you say that moksha cannot be reached by apti, by travel, he says, Shruti will get angry with you. He uses that word, Shruti nam kopasya. He will get angry with you. And he quotes, Sa ekada. That's from Chandogya Upanishad, 7th chapter. It says, in Brahmaloka, the Upasaka can take many, many forms. and many, many bodies. What does it mean? This Upasaka who has reached Brahmaloka, he has the powers to take as many bodies simultaneously, as many types of bodies also, just by Sankalpa alone, which is just like Ishvara. So and he adds, if he wants to see all his ancestors, Sayadi Pitraloka Kamaha Bhavaha. If he wants to see all his ancestors, simply on his wish, all of them will be present in front of him. And he says, Tri Birva Yanerva. He can have as many wives and as many vehicles as he wants. And in the modern context, you can add, if it's a lady, she can have as many husbands and as many vehicles as she wants. Here indicating that moksha is considered as Aishwarya Praptihi, attaining the same powers as the Lord. What is the logical hole over here? Why can it not be said that having the same powers as Ishvara is moksha? Why it cannot be said? All very, very beautiful topics requiring a lot of mananam.
Is it
What is it?
because Brahmaloka is also impermanent? It's not permanent itself. And Brahma ji is also having a life of his own. He's not permanent.
No, that's not the reason. What is moksha?
Moksha is Poonam.
What is the definition of moksha? Anybody? Definition of moksha? Come. Meda, what's the definition of moksha?
The knowledge that I am non-different from Brahman.
Correct. Understanding one's true nature. Right? That is the definition of moksha. What connection does it have with Aishwarasya Bhavaha, having the same powers as the Lord? No connection at all. There is a misconception that having the same powers as Ishvara, not becoming Ishvara. There's a difference. This Saguna Upasaka can acquire the same powers as Ishvara. He has not become Ishvara, because becoming Ishvara means you have understood your own true nature. Therefore, having the same powers as Ishvara does not make you necessarily understand your own nature. And it is because of this basic misconception that this objection has been raised. So Shankara replies, he says, I agree that what you say is also moksha, but it is apekshika moksha, not atyanta moksha. Apekshika moksha is what? Relative moksha. So if he is having the same powers as Ishvara, it is conceivable that he will be in Brahmaloka as long as Brahmaloka is there. Brahmaloka is not eternal, also collapses. Hence, it is moksha, but apekshaka moksha, not atyanta moksha. So he says that those Shruti Vakyams which you talk about are talking about Saguna Brahman, Brahmaloka, etc. And there's a word for this, Karya Brahma. That Brahman, which is a product, Karya Brahma is Saguna Brahman. This is apekshika moksha. And he says, because, what is the reason? He quotes the Purvapakshi who says that this person will have as many wives and as many vehicles. He says, only in Karya Brahma Loka will there be vehicles and ladies, but not in Karana Brahman. The Brahman which is Nirguna Brahman, nothing exists. And Shankara quotes from mostly Chandogya Upanishad, Ekameva Advatiyam. Everything is Advaita alone. And Yatra Nanyat Pashyati, there is nothing to be seen. Tatkena Kam Pashyet. What will be seen when everything is only one. So he says all these Shruti Vakyams, they support my position actually that there is no travel. Okay, so far is it clear? Or you have any questions? It's a very interesting discussion, that's why I brought it in. All right, so we'll go on. So far, what has Shankara said? He has said Jnana, Karma, Samuchaya. The combination of Jnana and Karma cannot give moksha. Now he takes a twist and he says, actually speaking, Jnanam and Karma cannot be combined at all. Jnana, Karma, Samuchaya is an impossibility. Why? Because they are of opposing nature. Why is that so? The one who is doing karma, what is his view? That I am doing karma. I am a karta. While the one who is pursuing jnanam has to invoke his status as a karta. So if you are doing samuchaya, you will have to look upon yourself as a karta and a akarta at the same time. Because if you are doing combining karma and jnanam, in karma you are a karta, in jnanam you are a akarta. How can you combine karta and akarta at the same time? They are diagonally opposites. And therefore he says Brahman cannot be sagunam with attributes like karta, etc. and nirgunam at the same time. You can have saguna Brahma, you can have nirguna Brahma at the same time. You can have actually. How? Shankara says that Brahman cannot be sagunam and nirgunam at the same time. But we know Brahman can be sagunam and nirgunam at the same time, providing you add a corollary. What is a corollary? What should be the corollary? Yes, Vandana.
Understanding that two different levels of reality.
Two different levels of reality, and therefore Shankara adds very carefully, Paramarthatha. They cannot exist in the same Paramarthic level of reality. It's a very important note. Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman do coexist, but one in Vyavaharika Satyam, one in Paramarthika Satyam. So one in Karma Kanda and one in Jnana Kanda. And therefore he says that even if we are able to see that one Brahman as Sagunam and Nirgunam, only one can be Satyam, the other must be Mithya. Again, very, very careful note. Okay. Then, even though Shankara says that Jnanam and Karma cannot be combined, what do we see? We see Shankaracharyas of various mathas doing karma and puja every day, and many Vaidika karmas they do, and they do Jnanam also. Logic says they cannot combine, but Pratyaksham shows that they do combine Jnanam and karma. What is the answer?
They are already enlightened, kind of. So whatever karma they do, it is fine.
No, the argument is that if you are doing karma, you are invoking your status as karta. And when you are doing jnanam, you are invoking your status as akarta. And therefore, how do you combine?
Chariji, you said it's all karma bhasa for loka sangraha, and this is all in Vyavaharika. In Paramarthika, they are already aware of their true nature.
Okay, so we'll put it this way. When a Ajnani performs karma, Vaidika, I'm talking about Ajnani sadhaka who is performing karma, Vaidika karma, what is he doing it for? As a sadhana for moksha, right? When a Jnani performs samuchaya, supposing Jnanam plus karma, the Purvapakshi thinks, he extends their argument. And he says that this jnani is performing the karma for getting moksha. And that is the contradiction. Because if the jnani is doing karma as a sadhana for moksha, then he is not a jnani, he is samsari. So the mindset of the Purvapakshi is that jnani should look upon himself as a sadhaka while he is doing jnana karma samuchaya, and he must look forward to moksha as a sadhyam. A jnani need not maintain this mindset. He cannot maintain this mindset because he is already Jivanmukta. Hence, the Shankaracharya of the Matha doing karma is not an appropriate example, because that Shankaracharya of the karma doesn't look upon himself, of the Matham, doesn't look upon himself as sadhaka. And therefore, for him, moksha is not a sadhyam, it's a siddha vastu. And therefore, he says, jnana karma samuchaya is not possible. Okay. Now, Purvapakshi raises one more objection. He says, Vedanta is negating Dvaitam. Right? Vedanta negates Dvaitam, but Veda Purva, the Karma Kanda, prescribes Vaidika karma and all sort of rituals. Every ritual requires Dvaitam, and therefore, this Veda Purva Bhaga follower, who is the Karma Yogi. Because Karma Yogi follows Veda Purva, Karma Kanda. He says this Karma Yogi follows Dvaitam, while the Jnana Yogi negates Dvaitam. How can one Veda itself, Veda is Pramanam, how can one Veda itself in one part accept Dvaitam and reject Dvaitam? Because they are contradictory to each other. Shankara answers that it is correct that Karma Kanda and Vedanta have this different views. But there is a difference. You have to finally accept that Karma Kanda and Vedanta put together are basically one pramanam, and they have only one purpose: to free the seeker from samsara. So moksha is the only purushartha which is being encouraged in both the sections, Karma Kanda as well as Jnana Kanda. Right? And Karma Kanda accepts the other three. Which are the three? Artha, all those three, it accepts, right? But that is on a provisional basis, because in all Shruti, the only Purushartha is actually moksha. Artha, Kama, Dharma, we accept only provisionally. But ultimately, the only Purushartha is moksha. Right? What is the meaning of that? If you are saying, because what did the Purvapakshi say? Karma Kanda is encouraging rituals, and therefore Dvaita is a must. So Purvapakshi is saying that Karma Kanda is a pramanam for Dvaitam, and if that is what you are saying, then you are also saying that Jnana Kanda is a pramanam for Advaitam. Definitely there is a contradiction. But Shankara says that is not true. Karma Kanda, even though it brings in Ishvara and Jiva and all sort of rituals to Ishvara, it is not a pramanam for Dvaitam. He repeats, Karma Kanda is not a pramanam for Dvaitam. Why? What is the definition of pramanam? Anadhigata vastu. What is anadhigata vastu? We have discussed this many times. A pramanam has to be anadhigata, which means what? It should be talking about things.
Is it, so Om sir, is it that it cannot be contradicted by another pramanam?
No, that is
No.
abhaditaha. That is abhaditaha.
Okay.
So we are
Okay.
saying anadhigata means a pramanam has to talk about things which cannot be known by any other pramanam. And therefore punyam and papam and swarga, which no other pramanam can tell you, Veda talks about. Okay, how do you know? Indicated in the Tatparyam, the Shadlingani. What are the Shadlinganis? Do you remember the small little verse which we have discussed? Upakrama upasamharaha abhyaso purvata phalam arthavado upapattihi chalingam tatparna nirnaye. Upakramaha upasamharaha abhyasaha apurvata. Apurvata means what? Which is not known before, which has not been revealed to you by any other pramana. That is what should be taken here. And Dvaitam, what pramanam reveals Dvaitam to you? Do you need Veda to tell you that there is Dvaitam?
No, my eyes.
Your Pratyaksh Pramana.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pratyaksha
Pratyaksha
pramanam
Pramana.
shows you
Yeah.
Dvaitam. And therefore he says, your statement that Veda is a pramanam for Dvaitam is wrong because it violates the principle of anadhigataha. Veda should not tell you about anything which can be known by other pramana. Okay. Then, this fundamental rule you must always keep in mind that any pramanam will reveal Dvaitam, but your eyes will reveal Dvaitam, your ears will reveal Dvaitam, your skin will reveal Dvaitam, but what cannot be revealed about Dvaitam by any pramanam excepting Veda is the mithyatvam of Dvaitam. Your eyes can reveal to you Dvaitam, but eyes cannot reveal to you the mithyatvam of Dvaitam. That the Dvaita vastu is mithya, it cannot reveal. And therefore, the objective of Karma Kanda is not to be a pramanam for Dvaitam, but to be a pramanam for revealing the mithyatvam of Dvaitam. Hence, Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda both have the same ultimate destination. Both teach you about the mithyatvam of Dvaitam. Any questions so far? I hope you're following. It's a very involved argument, but very, very necessary for us. Shankara continues on this topic. He says, now he has given some reasons already why Jnanam and Karma are opposed to each other. Why is it? One is the phalam is different. The phalam of Jnanam is Chaturvida, which already talked about, Apti, etc. The Jnana phalam is different from those four. Number two, Jnanam deals with Advaitam and Karma deals with Dvaitam, of course, with the objective of revealing the Mithyatvam, but it deals with Dvaitam. So Karma deals with Dvaitam, Jnanam deals with Advaitam. The subjects are different. And he says, the third reason is that the one who has Jnanam or wants to come to Jnanam, he should have Vairagyam. And this is the force behind Jnanam. The one who is in Karma Kanda is driven by the desire for the Karma Phalam. While the one who is in Jnana Kanda is driven by the desire for Vairagyam, Nishkamatvam. These are different forces. Therefore, Jnani's karma is karma abhasa, as if karma. Why? Because the desire for the karma phalam is absent. With this, the discussion on Jnana, Karma, Sama, Pradhana, Samachaya. Jnanam and Karma having the same force is over. What is the fourth one? Jnana, Pradhana, Samachaya, where Jnanam is predominant and Karma is secondary. Here also, Shankara dismisses in one line. He says, because of the reason that Jnanam and Karma are opposed to each other, all the three reasons which we just talked about should be recalled. Therefore, he says, Jnanam cannot be depending upon Karma as a cause for moksha. With this, the fourth view is also over. The reason is the same as the third view, and so Shankara does not elaborate. But he does make a note here that Jnanam and Karma cannot coexist. So they cannot be combined simultaneously. It doesn't mean that they cannot come in sequence. First, Karma is required to produce Chitta Shuddhi, and thereafter he can come to jnana. So while samuchaya is not possible, krama samuchaya is possible. Krama means in sequence. So the combination of jnanam and karma can exist. First karma, then jnana. Once karma has done its job, then you come to jnanam. So they have to be combined, but sequentially, in krama. However, remember one thing, that the sadhana, we are saying that karma and jnanam cannot be combined, together, but they can be combined sequentially, one after the other. But remember that karma and jnana sadhana, they can definitely be combined. It's not necessary to complete your karma as a karma yogi, get chitta shuddhi, and then come to jnanam. That's what Shankara is also saying. Karma and jnana sadhanam. Jnana sadhanam is what? Shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam. They can coexist. So jnanam and karma cannot coexist. Jnanam and karma abhasa can coexist. That is what is being said over here. And he said, of course, that jnanam and the jnana sadhana, karma and the jnana sadhana can coexist. So the Purvapakshi is not given up. He says, okay, you have negated samasamuchaya, the combination simultaneously, but you have accepted krama samuchaya in sequence. That means what? You are accepting that karma is required to come to jnanam as a measure of chitta shuddhi. And if karma is required, then it means that grahastha ashram is required. This is the new objection of the Purvapakshi. He says, since you say that karma and jnanam have to be combined in sequence, okay, I accept. But karma has to be there. And if karma has to be there, it means grahastha ashrama has to be there. And therefore, only grahasthas can get moksha. Why? Because you can do karma only in grahastha ashrama. How can you say that the sadhaka does not need grahastha and go to sannyasa? He may not be interested in any of the three lokas, but for the performance of karma, he cannot be a sannyasi. He has to be a grahastha only. A sannyasi can never get moksha, that means, because sannyasis are not eligible to do nitya karma prescribed by the scriptures. And therefore, Purvapakshi says, your contention that there are 4 ashramas, that is not correct. All the 4 ashramas merge into one ashrama, the grahastha ashrama. Okay. If you are surprised at the intensity of the discussions, it doesn't say so in Shankara Bhashyam, but remember, these discussions are supposed to have taken place between Shankara and Mandana Mishra. Mandana Mishra was a person who was a Purvapakshi. He was later called Sureshwaracharya after he became Shankara's disciple. Okay, so we are saying that he says that there is only one ashrama, that is the contention. Shankara says, okay, no doubt that grahastha is the ideal ashrama which can assist people irrespective of their goals. Whether it be for worldly desires, you can be in grahastha ashrama. For moksha also, you can be in grahastha ashrama. Because for a person oriented towards the world, kamya karma is there. For the mumukshu, nitya, naimitya karma is there. Both sort of karmas are there in grahastha ashrama. It's an ideal ashrama. And Shankara makes the point. Nitya naimitya karma will help you in chitta shuddhi, that I agree. But you cannot say that nitya naimitya karma is confined to grahastha ashrama. You cannot say that grahastha ashrama nitya naimitya karma alone will give chitta shuddhi. That is the fault the problem, the mistake that you are making, because Veda provides lots of karmas. And Veda itself talks about 4 ashramas, so you cannot say that only one ashrama exists. Each ashrama has its own karma, which are different from grahastha ashrama. For example, grahastha ashrama karma is Agni Pradhana karma. Agni is centralized. Brahmacharya ashrama has, for example, Sandhya Vandanam. Vanaprastha has Upasana, Japa, Parayanam. These are all nitya karmas for each ashrama. For Brahmacharya ashrama, it is Sandhya Vandanam and things like that. For Vanaprastha, it is Upasana, Japa, Parayanam. For Sannyasi, you have Guru Shushrusha, Guru Puja, Japa, Parayanam. And therefore, Shankara says all these are Nitya karmas. All these karmas will give Chitta Shuddhi. And then he adds, actually, Sannyasa Ashrama karmas are more conducive for Vedanta Vichara. Why? Because in Grihastha Ashrama, you have possessions, you have relationships, you have obligations arising out of those possessions, and you have transactions arising out of those possessions and obligations and relationships. All of them lead to a weakening of your attention, your focus. While Sannyasa Ashrama does not have any of these. Therefore, Sannyasa Ashrama is more conducive. And Shankara gives one more argument. This Grahastha Nitya Naimittika Karma, the Nitya Naimittika Karma for a Grahastha, there is always some small Suna. Do you remember what Suna is? What is Suna? Suna?
Certain defect or certain minor papam that we do on an everyday basis and we are not aware.
Inevitable papam which you do. Killing of small insects, putting some, maybe you're putting some insecticide somewhere. All this is necessary for a grahastha, and there is some inevitable papam. So he says grahastha nitya naimittika karma invariably involves this kind of small papam, right? And therefore total ahimsa is not possible in grahastha, and that is why grahasthas have to do panchamahayagnya as prayashchita. However, sannyasa ashrama karma does not require any compromise with these values, and therefore sannyasa ashrama karmas are uncontaminated karmas. He calls it asankirna karmani, uncontaminated karmas, and therefore they are more suited for moksha. And Shankara also says one more reason he gives. Jnana yogyata can be gained through karma performed in grahastha ashrama in the previous life, right? It's not necessary that jnana yogyata has to be gained only in this life. A person could have come into this world, been born after having attained chitta shuddhi in the purva janma, and therefore he can avoid grahastha ashrama completely in the current janma. You will find a reference to this in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. What is such a person called? Who has completed chitta shuddhi and then come?
Yoga Brashta.
Yoga Brashta. So he says the karmas done in the previous janmas can give you chitta shuddhi, and therefore he can attain jnanam in this janma without entering grahastha. Right? Okay. Here, remember that when you say yoga brashtaha, even if jnanam is there, he could have got chitta shuddhi and jnanam, but even if jnanam is there, it is obstructed jnanam which has not taken fruit. And that is why you take a new birth. The jnanam need not be acquired all over again. Only the obstructions have to be removed. In such cases, you will find that there is no guru, no shravanam, no mananam, no nididhyasanam. He becomes a jnani. But he is not shrotriya. He is brahmanishta, but not shrotriya. Okay. Now, Shankara says that grahastha ashram is meant for 4 types of benefits. What are they? Putra. Through the children, the benefit is manushya-loka. Karma. Through karma, one can get swarga-loka. Upasana. Through karma plus upasana, one can get brahma-loka. Chitta shuddhi. Nitya naimittika karma gives you chitta shuddhi. All this specifically laid down in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. We will see when we come to that. But he says this mumukshu that you are talking about is not interested in the first 3, which is what is the first 3? Manushya loka, Swarga loka, Brahma loka. He already has chitta shuddhi. And therefore, grahastha is meant for karma for chitta shuddhi. But since he already has chitta shuddhi, for him, taking up grahastha ashrama is meaningless, and such a person takes to vividisha sannyasaha. Sannyasa which is taken for the purpose of following Shravanam, Maranam, Nididhyasanam. Right? He already has Chittasuddhi. If he already has Chittasuddhi and Jnanam, then he will still take to Vivadisha Sannyasa, but only for Maranam and Nididhyasanam, which will do what? Remove doubts. Maranam will remove doubts. Nididhyasanam will remove Viparita Bhavana. So until Jnana Utpatti, until the birth of Jnanam, karma is a sadhana. After Jnana Utpatti, karma becomes an obstacle, a pratibandha. And Shankara says that is why Shastram gives you the option of sannyasa. And he adds, you cannot drop the duties of a grahastha ashram while remaining in the grahastha ashram. It will produce pratyavaya papam. And therefore, you have to, if you want to do this, you have to formally renounce the grahastha ashram by taking sannyasa. And this kind of sannyasa taken for the purpose of mananam and nididhyasanam is called vidvat sannyasa. Vivadisha sannyasa is meant for taking up jnanam, and then that's not meant for shravanam, and then mananam, and then nididhyasanam. The difference between vivadisha sannyasa and vidvat sannyasa is vivadisha sannyasa is taken for the purpose of all three, as I meant. First jnanam, then mananam, then nididhyasanam. While vidvat sannyasa is taken for mananam and nididhyasanam, or only nididhyasanam, depending upon whether the person has obstructed jnanam or samshaya rahita jnanam. Shankara adds, Shastra itself prescribes this type of sannyasa. How can you say there is only one ashrama? You are quite wrong. So in his Bhashyam, there are very many more ideas, more arguments, but these are very main ones. What is left now is the fourth one, Kevala Jnanam, which alone he says will give moksha. With this, Anuvaka 11 and its Bhashyam is over. In the next class, we will pick up Anuvaka 12, it's a very short Shanti Mantra, and also we will enter the next chapter. Any questions? I know it's been quite heavy, but it's like, lime pickle. The more it pickles in you, the sweeter it becomes. So you'll have to, especially this Bhashyam part, you will have to meditate upon it regularly for quite some time before it really sinks in. Om Tanmay, glad to see you there.
On and off, Acharya. Internet is a little funny.
Okay.
But on and off.
Any questions? Any doubts? If not now, it'll come after some time. You can put it in the group and we'll talk about it. With this, we'll stop for the day. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you,
Thank you,
Acharya ji.
Acharya.
Thank you, Ji.